A woman is accusing Sean Diddy Combs of and her when she was 16 years old in 2000.
In the meantime, let's go back to New York City. Want to get some updates on the case that is unfolding there regarding Sean Diddy Combs.
To understand how we arrived at this point, we need to rewind to when Sean Combs was just a boy in Mount Vernon, New York, raised by a single mother determined to give him the best. Janice, a former model and teacher's assistant, was resolute in not letting tragedy define her life. After losing her husband, Melvin, in the early 1970s, she took charge and did her best to shield her son from the harsh realities of their life. But recent revelations suggest that this shielding might not have been as effective as she intended.
That kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things? Or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it? Or how is that?
Sean himself has spoken about how his mother's sacrifices inspired him, crediting Janice with instilling a strong work ethic and resilience. However, he's also reflected on his early experiences in ways that suggest a more complicated reality. In interviews, he recalled seeking attention from women as young as 4 or 5, attributing it to moments when his mother's friends would cradle him on their laps. Some see this as a sign of early exposure to adult behaviors, and critics argue it shaped his perceptions in troubling ways.
According to the Rolling Stone, the doc features an alleged childhood friend of Puff's, hip-hop producer Tim Dog Patterson. He alleged that Janice, Diddy's mom, would often throw parties at Diddy's childhood home. He says that during the parties, it wasn't uncommon to walk into rooms where adults was having that was just their normal.
Janice has defended her son publicly, calling the allegations against him a public lynching and urging people to withhold judgment until all the facts are revealed. While she acknowledges that Sean has made mistakes in the past, she has stopped short of addressing the most serious accusations directly. Critics point out that her defense teeters between support and denial, leaving much open to interpretation. As more details surface, the focus has shifted to the impact of Sean's childhood and the role it played in shaping the man he is today.
Than anyone ever knew.
Talking about the parties, Tim says, verbatim, "That's what we were privy to. This was what we were fed. Was it desensitizing us? I'm sure it was. Were we aware of it? No, that was just Saturday night." In the doc, per Rolling Stone, this type of childhood is alleged to be why Tim, the longtime friend of Diddy's, Puff believes that Puff found himself in the position he is in now.
What's clear is that his childhood, which appeared idyllic on the surface, was anything but. Beneath the polished exterior of private school and Little League baseball, there was a world of chaos and contradiction. The experiences Sean had as a child, the ones that blurred the lines between normal and excessive, seem to have carried into his adult life.
A question that we just can't ignore is the role of power. Because one question is, how does somebody become the way they are? And then another question is, how are they allowed to stay the way that they are? And I think that also speaks to this kind of, lack of accountability.
As the speculation about Janice's involvement continues, many wonder whether her influence on her son might have been more significant than previously thought. The parallels between his upbringing and the controversies of his adult life are striking, and it raises important questions about the impact of childhood on adult behavior.
Keep saying to me, like, how did you keep, why did you keep going? Why were you there? I'm like, it literally is around me. If I don't stay at home, this is the atmosphere I'm in. Like, I have no choice.
Now, as the world watches Diddy face criminal charges and a series of lawsuits, the question isn't just what he did, but who enabled him, who turned a blind eye, and who is speaking out now. Those who were once closest to him, from childhood friends to employees, are starting to reveal more about the chaos behind closed doors. One of the most alarming accounts comes from Roger Bonds, a former bodyguard, who claimed to have witnessed Diddy's volatile temper. Other former employees have shared stories of manipulation and exploitation that paint a troubling picture of the man behind the mogul.
He's been a symbol of resilience in the Combs family, a single mother who raised a mogul against all.
The lawsuits, now numbering over 40, continue to pile up, with accusations spanning decades and involving both men and women. Former romantic partners and employees have come forward, many claiming to have been coerced into compromising situations. While criminal charges are still pending, it's clear that Diddy's empire was built on more than just music. It was built on power, indulgence, and control.
Thought that he was above the law, so I can only think that he was sloppy in the way that he did these crimes, that there's probably a trail of evidence not only involving him but everybody in his circle that he would delegate these responsibilities to, and those people are when they're.
The question of who else might be implicated in these events looms large. Though Diddy is at the center of this story, it's clear that he didn't operate in isolation. Some members of his inner circle may have played active roles in facilitating these gatherings, while others may have been complicit in turning a blind eye. How deep the involvement of others goes remains unclear, but what is undeniable is that Diddy didn't run his empire alone.
I feel like we're almost becoming numb to the lawsuit after the lawsuit after the lawsuit. And do all of the allegations against Combs so far that we've seen make the claims here, these new claims, do you think it makes it more or less true?
This scandal has not only put Diddy's personal life in the spotlight but has also raised questions about the broader culture within the entertainment industry. Many of those who have come forward have described a system that prioritized power and profit over accountability, leading some to wonder whether this moment could lead to meaningful change.
Because the 8 people in the videos, the 8 celebrities in the videos were allegedly victims of crimes, we know who they are, but we will not be naming them, famous or not.
As the legal battles unfold, many are left questioning what the future holds for Diddy. If convicted, he could face significant prison time, but even if he avoids conviction, his career and reputation may be irreparably damaged. The fallout is already being felt by those who were once close to him, with former collaborators, business partners, and friends distancing themselves from the mogul.
Well, first of all, I can only imagine how sloppy Sean Combs was with evidence when he got busted with those 2 machine guns or 3 machine guns with the altered serial numbers. So I really don't trust Sean Combs or the people around him's ability to properly cover up anything. So I envision that you're going to see a trial, payments from his Amex for flights for people, straight payments directly from his company to people.
At the heart of this story is the human element, the individuals who have come forward to share their experiences, often at great personal risk. Their courage is forcing the industry to confront its own complicity in enabling bad behavior. Whether or not Diddy is ultimately convicted, these revelations have already left a lasting impact, sparking a broader conversation about accountability and power within the entertainment world.
Is important because this happened in hotels, in places that have surveillance, that there's records that could be consistent with his testimony about when he alleges that these parties took place. He probably has his own information about who attended the events. When you're somebody like Sean Combs and you're such a celebrity and you're engaged in this type of behavior, people around you are memorializing it on their own.
As the trial date approaches, the world will continue to watch closely. Will more people come forward? Will Diddy's legal team be able to mount a successful defense? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear, this story is far from over, and there are still many unanswered questions about Janice's role, Diddy's upbringing, and the empire he built.
He is very, very dominant. Like, he wants to control the situation. He wants to control his inner circle. He wants to make everyone have a good time and enjoy his parties. And so, it is scary because you think, this person or possibly his social network or the people he's around could make or break your career.
But the emotion.
Sure. This story revolves around Shaw Diddy Combs, commonly known as Diddy, and his mother, Janice, exploring their complicated family dynamics, Diddy's upbringing, and the controversies that have followed him throughout his life. Recently, rumors have emerged that Janice may have been involved in some of the problematic behavior surrounding her son, with speculations that the FBI may have taken her into custody. The big question is how much influence Janice had over Diddy's decisions and whether she unknowingly contributed to his controversial behavior.
But it will be up to the jury, and there's really another piece of this case, and that's the racketeering case, and they don't really talk about that. Diddy's attorneys, Sean Combs' attorneys, they stay away from the racketeering part of this. They are focused solely on the trafficking part of this case.
To understand how Diddy got to this point, We need to look at his childhood in Mount Vernon, New York, where he was raised by his mother after his father's death. Janice, despite losing her husband, worked hard to provide for her son, even moving them to better neighborhoods and putting him through private school. However, it turns out that Diddy grew up in an environment far from ideal. His mother often hosted lavish parties at their home, which brought together people from different backgrounds, including some from dangerous, chaotic circles. While young Diddy was kept away from the parties, the energy and atmosphere left an impression on him. These gatherings reportedly involved loud music, recklessness, and even nudity, which likely shaped Diddy's later behavior in adulthood.
Certainly, there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
A childhood friend of Diddy, Tim Patterson, shared his experiences in a documentary that shed light on the wild, adult-centered atmosphere Diddy grew up in. He believed that this early exposure to unrestrained indulgence desensitized them to certain behaviors and blurred the lines of what was acceptable. These parties at Janice's home seemed to mirror the kinds of events Diddy would later host as an adult.
So remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak-offs? All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping the Diddy documentary. It's called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently facing.
Fast forward to Diddy's adult life, and many of the same themes of indulgence and excess are present. He built a career around lavish parties, luxury, and power, leading to his bad boy empire. Recently, allegations surfaced about these gatherings, which have been described as exploitative or even manipulative. Some have even compared these events to the chaotic, boundary-blurring parties of his youth. This raises the question of whether Janice's role in his childhood environment could have influenced his adult decisions.
If you say the wrong thing, or you complain, or you know, I don't know, there's an element where you're just, I guess manipulated in a way to make you feel like, oh, you have to please everyone around you. You can't say anything wrong. You don't want to say a bad thing, or, you know, when they're constantly asking, would you like to do drugs? And you're like, well, I don't do drugs. And they're like, well, why don't you do drugs?
Sure. This story revolves around Shaw Diddy Combs, commonly known as Diddy, and his mother, Janice, exploring their complicated family dynamics, Diddy's upbringing, and the controversies that have followed him throughout his life. Recently, rumors have emerged that Janice may have been involved in some of the problematic behavior surrounding her son, with speculations that the FBI may have taken her into custody. The big question is how much influence Janice had over Diddy's decisions and whether she unknowingly contributed to his controversial behavior.